Archos. So, next up we have an exclusive fireside chat featuring George Archos and Charlie Bachtell, moderated by Brian Schinderle. Gentlemen, come on up.
Morning, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Good morning.
First of all, thank you to the Ignite guys for putting together a great conference. Really appreciate that. Also want to thank my old friends from Chicago, from the early days in the Illinois market. I've known both of these gentlemen for quite a while, and I think probably don't need any introduction to anybody in this room. Charlie and George are, true OGs in the national cannabis market, and really an honor to be up here, and really at a fantastically transformational time in the cannabis market from the standpoint of all the changes that have been going on in the last few months. So I think we're going to get right after it and put these guys on the hot seat, see what they say, right? So. First question that I have for them that I'll throw out there is, we just finished third quarter earnings, and so we've got some fresh numbers from everybody in the industry, and some common themes were out there. A lot of price compression in a lot of mature markets. A lot of the players, very focused on cost controls and a lot of discipline across the market. So in general, a lot of people, I think, sort of playing, very carefully in this market, and a lot of things changing at the moment. So I'm very curious for both of these gentlemen, kind of what they see as sort of, areas where there might be white space, areas where they see the ability to start playing on the front foot. And I guess I'll throw it open and see what they say.
Start us off, bud. Sure, no problem. Thank you, Brian. Always a pleasure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. Yes, we did go through Q3 earnings. Yes, we saw price compression, the typical things that we've been talking about for quite some time, but there is white space and there is brighter lights and brighter days ahead. Many industries go through the ups and downs, and this industry is nothing like any other. So we're going to go through our ups and downs. We're going to go through our battles and hurdles. But at the end of the day, when you look at our businesses and what we're selling, units are up. THC is thriving across the country. So I view it as an opportunity to continue to make our business better. Yes, we have to get more efficient. We have to get better at our jobs. We're pushing our teams, all of us are, every single day to look for improvement within our facilities. We're looking how do we get better at customer service, how do we make new form factors, we're looking at new markets, we're lobbying with a more collaborative effort on the federal level, on the state level. So I view it as all upside. I mean, you can't look at a couple things here and there of pricing pressure and things of that and say, oh, cannabis is doomed. That's just not the way it is. We believe in this industry. We've been doing it for myself and Charlie here for 11 plus years. We all have amazing people that are here for the long term. We've built these companies for the long term, and I view there's a ton of positivity. Right? We still have so many more markets that have to switch from medical to adult use. We have markets that have no programs today. So there's still there's tremendous upside. In the current markets that we're operating, some of them we can go deeper with more retail. Some of them, like I said earlier, have nothing going on across the country, so we're lobbying these states to enact programs in place that we can participate in and offer growth to our company, but there's tremendous upside. Right? We're going to continue to get better and more efficient, and we're going to work on new markets and go deeper in the markets that we're in, and it's a beautiful thing. Charlie?
I would agree with everything that you said, and so I'm trying not to be redundant at all, but there's a lot of discussions about lack of growth in the industry. Again, I think you're limiting yourself, the view, to just the state-regulated industry right now when, like George says, units are up. Over the last 5 years, units are up significant percent. And then you also have to look at total THC consumption in the United States, which is up significantly. So if you look at the total addressable market over the last 2 years from just THC in general. It's a growth story everywhere. As we look at it, similar to like what George said, there's opportunities to go deeper into states that you're already in. Consolidation's an inevitability of this industry. I think everything that you're seeing and everything that George said, you could sort of wrap in the umbrella of the maturation of an industry. The industry's maturing. So you have to have consolidation. You have to create scale. You have to get more efficient. And you have to look at the new opportunities that open themselves up as an industry matures. So at Cresco, we think of the growth plan in really two distinct opportunities or paths. There's the traditional path, which is state-regulated cannabis. So it's either states that we're not in yet that have good regulatory and economic structures, going deeper into states that we're already in, or the alternative growth path is you look at international. You look at, and again, updated based on recent legislative initiatives, but you look at these other THC categories and how they develop and how they continue to evolve over the 12 months ahead, and you've got plenty of growth opportunities under the large umbrella of cannabis or THC.
Very curious. All of the larger MSOs have gone through their major CapEx cycles. If you look at 2021, 2022, 2023, the CapEx numbers that were spent were enormous. Building out cultivation facilities in multiple states, expansions into multiple states. Those numbers have come way down, and so now there's a much more acute focus on how you spend those dollars, and the choices of where you spend those dollars are things like densification in existing states, expansion into other states, projects to add efficiencies in existing operations. How difficult is it, and how has that process changed over the last, call it 18 months, as far as how you allocate capital and the hurdle rate for what it takes to actually commit to capital projects?
Go for it.
I mean, it's really no different. We're always looking for the best placement of our dollars for the best ROI, right? So currently, yes, we don't have any large-scale projects, which we've had in the past. That will change, right? New markets, new opportunities will do that. Today, what are we looking at? I mean, some of our facilities have gotten older, so you're making better HVAC improvements, better light improvements, better yield improvements. We're putting efficiency into these facilities through automation, et cetera. So we're pinpointing our dollars rather than broad strokes of building massive facilities today. But again, it's a roller coaster ride. Things will change, and we'll be building facilities again one day when new states open up and new programs happen. So it's just a math equation. Where we have a certain amount of capital, where do we put it to get the best return for our dollars?
Yeah, I'd echo, and especially in the environment right now where it continues to be, and maybe even more intensely, a capital-constrained environment with a high cost of capital. You're trying to figure out ways to deploy that dollar in the most capital-light, asset-light manner. Like if you look at our test launch that we talked about for Europe, it is an asset-light, capital-light approach. We're using infrastructure and existing licensees and operators that are already in place, and we're gonna learn a lot over the next 12 months without having to invest a lot of CapEx dollars, zero CapEx dollars.
I'm very curious to talk about what's evolved in some individual states. So a state like Minnesota, which has opened up for AU, but in doing so, they've carpet bombed the number of dispensaries that they're going to make available to the market, to the point where neither one of you have really made a play, at least not that I'm aware of, to enter that state. And contrast that with a state like Massachusetts, which, when it opened, was a highly desirable state. Everybody wanted to be in. Then it was a horrible state, and now feels like it may be self-correcting. And I'm just curious, do you see some hope for some of these states that went too far to lobby them to bring them back to places where they can have a healthier program, and how does, how do you view that as you look at your portfolio of various states that you either want to be in or are in already?
No, I'll kick that one off. So, yeah, no doubt about it. I think what the industry's learned over the last 10 years is regulatory structure is arguably the most impactful on the economic opportunity that exists. So looking at states and the way that they look at licensing, the way that they look at the regulations, and also enforcement, like, it should come as no surprise to anybody. It's really difficult to compete in an industry or a sport if everybody's not held to the same standard. And what we've seen is in states that have issued a lot of licenses, there's a lot of opportunity, but there's also a lot of risks. There's a lot of challenges. And so it can make for a difficult operating environment. Like, at the end of the day, we're still early days in the cannabis industry, and especially with legislative structures and regulatory structures. And with each new state or existing state that either launches or learns and makes modifications to it, the industry, you got to be as dynamic as the industry is. And as George said, this is arguably one of the most dynamic industries we've seen in generations. So I think you'll continue to see states learn from their experiences, whether that's in favor of a lot of licenses with small caps, whether it's in favor of less operators with larger license caps, whether it's no license caps. It's just going to evolve. I think that's the one thing that we should all be able to agree on is it will change, and it will continue to be on a case-by-case, state-by-state basis for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I'll echo what Charlie said. I mean, every state has its nuances. They're all very different. So the hope is, as new states enact programs, that they learn from the pitfalls and the positives from every state that's gone before them, right? Again, that's the hope. Doesn't happen every single time, but that's the hope. And I don't think Massachusetts is a horrible state. I love Massachusetts. Boston's a great town. But, I mean, you look at what they're trying to do now, right? They're trying to pass legislation to go past the cap of 3, right? Because they've learned that the program that they put in place isn't necessarily working for all the operators there, right? In order to have a sustainable business when there is price compression and maturity, you have to have scale, and there has to be efficient operation. So, again, Massachusetts is trying to do something to help their program. So, again, we're going to see that in multiple states. I mean, we're having discussions in states that we're in to make change, right? We all make mistakes, right? And the biggest thing you can do when you've made a mistake is make the change to correct that. So that's what we're working on in all these states that we're operating in, to enact change to make things better for everyone. It doesn't help when they, I'll use your term, carpet bomb a market with hundreds and hundreds of licenses, because what they're doing is they're getting people to get excited about a program, something they haven't been in, to deploy dollars that can come from their own savings account, from their family's savings account, their friends, and they're putting them in a position to fail. Because you can't, we've seen it now, that you can't have a sustainable business with hundreds upon hundreds of licenses in these small markets. It doesn't work.
Want to talk to you a little bit about what's happening in the industry right now as far as some of the platforms that are liquidating. We're witnessing 6 larger platforms that are out there currently being sold in pieces or in some form of receivership, liquidation, sale processes. We think there may be a couple more bubbling up that may come after that. Curious on a couple levels. One, it creates a lot of strain, I think, on a lot of players in the industry as they try to manage their accounts receivables, and in a lot of places, which can be difficult as people don't pay their bills, but also curious kind of how your thoughts have evolved on what that means on the back end, as far as is that a healthier industry? Does it, on the back end of this, does this really change things for the better, and how you're viewing it?
I could start. I mean, it's what we just discussed, right? You get these situations where you're putting these companies in a place where they can't sustain what is happening, right? So, in my opinion, it will be a better outcome. Like, I always think about the employees at these companies, right? They're in a position where they're at a company that might not be able to sustain their payroll, right? So I think these assets will fall into the hands of companies that have a more viable future. So these employees will have an opportunity to grow in cannabis because that's what they're doing. And to me, that's a very important factor in all this. And again, like we talked about earlier, cannabis is one of the most difficult industries to operate in. Every single state has a completely different set of rules. So it's a very difficult operating environment, right? Capital constraints, regulatory issues, the legislative issues that we go through, it's tough. So this was always expected, and I think the outcome, once we get through all of this, will be better for all the companies that are left behind.
Part of the maturing of an industry. An emerging industry always is going to have a shakeout. And especially if you look at the dynamics that are applied to our industry, as I mentioned earlier, limited access to capital, expensive capital, balance sheet health is so important. You're just seeing realities of the maturing of an emerging, highly regulated, complex industry.
Got it. Let's talk a little bit about some of the new markets that we hope or expect to potentially open up. So obviously Virginia's out there. People are hopeful on Pennsylvania. People are hopeful on Virginia. You're both in Pennsylvania, you're both in Virginia. Just sort of curious as to kind of how you're viewing, both of those. Florida's been a little bit of a battleground as people anticipated adult use. People built out, and pricing's been tough down there. And just sort of curious what the inside baseball is as we look toward 2026.
Inside baseball? Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you inside baseball. So Florida, we were anticipating the adult use transition, right? One thing that we've been known for is getting ready for an adult use transition. So we deployed major CapEx into Florida last year. And of course, we didn't win, right? That's the roller coaster ride we talk about. But would I have changed my decision today? No, because not being ready for that transition would have been worse, right? Versus being ready now for something that inevitably will happen. These markets will all transition. It's just in due time. And it's a risk-reward mentality. I mean, we're entrepreneurs. We didn't get into this because everything is laid out for us in a perfect timeline. We got into it because we take risk, measured risk, right? We look at it, how do we take a measured risk in this market to make sure we're prepared? And that's what we do. And we're going to continue to do that, right? Pennsylvania has definitely been a struggle, right? I'm sure Charlie will get into it. The legacy market for them as well. It's been very shocked it hasn't flipped yet. But again, that's what happens when you're dealing with various legislative bodies that don't necessarily agree on what something should look like. That's where the hope comes from, that they're learning from other states. That one's been tough. Virginia, we're here. Love the state of Virginia, or we're across the river. But we expect an adult use transition there, so we're readying ourselves. We have been readying ourselves. I think it'll be a great transition. Big population, good license profile, but they're all big changes for us. They're transformative. Florida, the governor that stood in front of this, it will be exiting next year, so we have a lot of positivity and hope around an adult use transition there in the next couple of years. And it'll be, obviously, it's a big market for us. We spend a lot of time, a lot of capital. We have great people there, so that's going to be the biggest change for Verano in our history, right? And we'll be even more prepared for it this round than we would have been last year or this year.
So as all of us look at the future of the industry, we should be optimistic about progress being made at a state and a federal level, as long as the industry and the participants therein show everybody that it could be a responsible and respectable industry, right? So to George's point, that's where the nuance and the difficulty comes in, is we don't know when. But all of us should be optimistic about progress being made at state and federal level. Again, our obligation is run good companies, show that you can be a responsible industry. You will then get the respect, which will then create the robust industry that all of us want to be a part of. Just don't know when.
So this is a policy conference, so I guess we've got to go into the policy stuff just for the hell of it, right? So Poly Market, which is a prediction market, is now predicting only a 26% chance that Schedule 3 passes by the end of the year. And I think they're at 34% by the end of the first quarter and slightly higher for the second quarter, which is disappointing. But if you think the cannabis equity markets are thin, poly market's a pretty thin market too. So, but it is an indicator. Curious how your views jive with that, and whether or not the events of the last few weeks have changed any views, or if you have any views that you'd like to share.
I mean, look, the industry and the participants have a history of being wrong.
Really?
So,
for real?
with that, I will tell you, I'm more optimistic than poly market. I do believe, look, we have an executive in office right now that made it very clear on multiple occasions that he's supportive of rescheduling. I hope that we can take him at his word, and that this will come. And whether it is before December 31st or after the 1st, this again is the blessing and the curse, the challenge, the dynamic nature of the industry that we're in. It's be ready for it. Be ready for it to take longer than you want it to, but be ready for it when it comes to. And those that can navigate these waters the best are the ones that are going to be successful long term.
Let me pull out my crystal ball real quick for you. Okay. I echo Charlie's sentiment. We've been doing this for a long time. I think we're in the best position we have ever been in with the current president to have something happen with rescheduling, right? He's mentioned it multiple times, even as recently as a few weeks ago, and consistently is posting things on his Truth account, Truth social account. So I think we're in a good position. So I think it's much better than 24%, to be perfectly honest. And if it's going to happen, it's going to happen with, very soon. So we'll see.
From your lips to God's ear, is all I can say.
Well, again, to George's point, I mean, we do have the benefit of the President of the United States putting a post out on his social media account with a video that explained how the endocannabinoid system is the future of tomorrow's medicine. I'd say that's a promising indicator.
It tees it up, right? This is research. I'm not going to sit up here and say that our president is going to go for full legalization. It's not what we're saying. I think the discussions have been, this is around research around cannabis, which is beneficial for all the medical patients across the country. And through research, we can see what's really going on. So I think it's teed up very well for him. Obviously, we love the fact that he continues to mention it, and it's on his radar, which is better than it's been for a very, very long time for us.
Ever.
Yeah. No. I know that you've both been very heavily involved in the discussions. Applaud your efforts. Hope that we can push it over the goal line. The odds of the Democrats taking back the House have swung quite a bit. The same poly market numbers are now showing that there's a 70% probability that in 2026 the Democrats take back the House. And there's some, I guess, risk in that. There's now, just inaction because you have divided government again. And curious whether or not you feel that puts us back into purgatory, or that has no effect because of where we're at in this process.
I could start. I mean, this is an administrative thing. This is not going to the Senate and the House. So we don't think it has an effect on rescheduling. Obviously, it has an effect on safe banking in states and these other things, but for rescheduling, we don't feel like it has an effect.
Yeah, it's a reminder of if you overuse the word dynamic, just know because this industry is incredibly dynamic and the things that impact it are dynamic too. It's something that we'll see if and when it happens, but I think it just is a reminder that you could have, 2021 after the Georgia runoff, where the Dems had the executive branch on both sides of Congress, and then we have the opposite here. That is not indicative of policy getting across the finish line, neither is a divided government. So we need to focus on what we can control. We need to run a responsible and respectable industry. We need to continue to educate. We need to make sure, and again, what's happened over the last couple of months with a focus on THC, we now know that legislators, especially in the Senate and the House, are very familiar with the topic, with the subject matter. They're more educated than they've ever been. again, if I was going to forecast it, I think there's a greater chance of incremental reform than there is of broad brushstrokes, but that's always been the case, and we just need to keep grinding at it.
So, last question. What is your favorite geographic market currently and why?
I thought you weren't going to ask us this question.
Well, no, you told me that you love all your children
All
the
children
same. Is what you
equally.
told me.
I mean, look, there's for us, and we've spoken more about this in recent earnings than others. We definitely have core markets. We have core markets that are the big needle movers for Cresco. Your Illinois, your Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida. For us, those are they offer the regulatory structures and also the operational infrastructure, the market positioning that we've been able to obtain in those that really do drive Cresco forward. We look to go deeper in those states, and then we also look to add states that can be complementary and accretive to the footprint. So it's that group, but please don't ask me to. They all have their pluses and minuses too. No mistake about it. Just like my kids.
So is that so does that mean that if you had the opportunity to densify, to catch a phrase, in those states, that those would be places that would be interesting to
Look, I think
densify?
consolidating productive states is clearly a focus as it should be.
Yeah, interesting.
We love all of our states, Brian. Okay, even Massachusetts, love Mass. It's good. I mean, listen, I would never pick out a state because that would just create a lot of pissed off employees. So I'm going to say I love all of our states. If you look at our footprint, obviously Florida is one of our biggest states. We spend a lot of time, a lot of capital there. We have great people. It's our biggest footprint. So if you had to, I'm not going to say it's my favorite state. It's just one of our top states for us at Verano, as well as Illinois and New Jersey and Pennsylvania and these others. But they're all amazing, and like Charlie said, they all have their pluses and minuses. But at the end of the day, they're all important to us. We pay attention to every single market. We're trying to make them better each and every single day, and we put out love to all of them.
Got it. Just want to say thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it, and I know you guys have some other meetings while you're here in Washington, and wish you great luck with those. And thank you very much. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.